Hey, this is Emiliano Velasquez, and this is my CS341 final project video. So the topic I chose is MVC architecture, and it's basically a programming style. So what MVC stands for is Model View Controller, and those three words represent kind of how you want to separate your program into those three sections: model, view, and controller. And So model, you can kind of think of it as like the object or database section of your code. View, you can think of as the user interface section, and controller is kind of the middleman working between both of them and changing both accordingly. So you can kind of think of it like the last project we had for 341, where we worked with a server, database, and GUI. So you can kind of think of how easy it would be to change one of those without really affecting the other two when you kind of work with this programming structure. Uh, yeah, this way to separate your code basically. The idea is that when you want to change something, kind of implement a feature or change a feature, you shouldn't have to look through several parts of your code, just a small section by separating into these three. So this diagram kind of explains pretty simply the relationship between the three and the user. So from here you can see that the model really doesn't interact with the user, which should make sense. We don't really want the user to change our database, for example. And here's just a short description of what each of the three sections does. Again, the model just handles the user data. If you're working with objects, it's kind of like the main object class. Here, the backbone of the code is supposed to have all your algorithms, your logic, and it primarily gives out information to the view section of your code and takes in from the controller. The view, on the other hand, pretty much just takes in information, doesn't really give information out, and you can think of it kind of basically as the user interface. The controller is the middleman. It works between the view and the model, kind of working with them to change information for the user. So this is my program. So I basically just implemented the CS342 project. If you're in that class with Reed, you probably recognize this. The board.java class represents my model section. View section, I called it ATEL's GUI, and controller is obviously ATEL's controller here. So looking at board, you can kind of see it's kind of the main class of this program, if you want to think of it something like that. So just quickly, I wanted to demonstrate these simple get and return functions that work with the controller to kind of give it information about the state of the board, for example. This is another good example. Find index of piece, takes in information from the controller and gives in information about itself back into the controller. This function move piece again takes in from the controller. However, this time it modifies the board to kind of change what the user wants. I think it's a pretty good function of how sometimes the model section of your code would change itself according to what the user wants. All right, now onto the view section of my code. Because it's in Java, I had to create this GUI to extend JFrame. So with that reason, we have a bunch of J objects like menu, items, buttons, and all that. So a lot of new there. And this display grid function is pretty much the main part of this class. It takes in information from the controller here. The state of the board is what I call it. It updates itself. It displays to the user here. And yeah. So going back to here real quick, when you can see it doesn't really have any kind of functions to change the other two. It just displays the grid and updates itself pretty much. It doesn't, the way you want to write your code is where the view doesn't really change the other two. And here, look into the controller real quick. Since it acts as the middleman and since I'm working in Java, one of the classes had to hold objects of the other two classes, and it just made sense for that to be the controller until you have a board and a tails GUI object. And here those get updated when it's controlled. And again, since it's Java, I have to implement this subclass listener, which takes care of the each button press, which I'm going to show you right now running this program. So here's what this program does really quickly. I only implemented the first part of the program if you remember it. Yeah, that's pretty much what this does, and that's my video. Thanks for watching.